Welcome back, my friends. Well, it is the cable channel that brought us shows like The Daily Show, South Park, Chappelle's Show, and more. It also introduced us to one of my favorites, the British sitcom Absolutely Fabulous. Look at Patsy. This year marks 30 years since the launch of Comedy Central, and a new podcast looks back at the early days of the network. The Constant Comedy Podcast debuted last week, featuring two former executives at the channel. And we're lucky to have them right now. Joining us are the hosts of the podcast, Art Bell and Vinnie Favale. Hi, guys.
Hey, Jason.
Hi.
Well, Art, let me start with you. I love a good origin story. I love to know where a good idea came from. I think youngins, too, have to go back and think of the atmosphere in 1991 of cable television and what the world and landscape looked like. Where did the idea come from to do a 24-hour comedy network?
Well, it came from me, and the reason is I loved comedy since I was a kid. And I went back to school. I went back to business school, and when I came out, I was hell-bent on getting a job in the television business. So I looked around, and despite the fact there was an all-music channel and all-sports channel, there was no all-comedy network. And I said, man, I'd really like to work in an all-comedy network. What's up with this? So I started thinking about what it would look like, and the next thing you know, I had a plan.
Vinnie, and people look at Comedy Central now and they're like, oh, it seems very obvious to them. The programming seems very obvious. Like, oh, of course it would be a hit. What was the early days like, though, both in buzz and ratings? Was it an out-of-the-gate success?
Absolutely not. It was the opposite of success.
Vinnie.
You hear of TV shows getting canceled in an old-fashioned way, by the way, where the ratings are low. We were the first network that almost got canceled. It was very, very difficult because you could do a drama channel and no one will challenge you on, well, that's not dramatic. But if you say you're a comedy channel, you better be funny. And we weren't always funny. We had a lot of, a combination of old movie clips and VJs who were doing great stuff, but it took a while.
Art, what was the first show? Again, I think, let's go back to the early 90s. What was the first show? Because like I said, I remember Ab Fab being rerun. What was the first show, Art, that you said, okay, we may be onto something as far as originals?
Yeah, that's easy. Mystery Science Theater 3000, which originated in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Yes, it did.
You know what? It came in the mail. They sent us a tape with a note that said, hey, we hear you guys are starting a comedy channel. Is this something you might like? We put it in the tape. It was so funny. We made a deal.
A VHS tape.
Yeah, VHS tape.
And you guys, wait a minute. I don't think we knew this. It came in the mail like just on a normal VHS?
Unsolicited, yeah. And it was, I believe it was on a UHF channel. This is the early days of cable, so there weren't a lot of cable networks, but I believe it was a UHF channel that the guys at Best Brains sent it to us, and we loved it immediately.
Yeah, that's right. And not only that, but we knew, that's the moment I knew, hey, innovative comedy programming is going to find us. And that was part of the dream,
Yeah.
Who else would put that on TV?
Right, that was the mandate.
And then, obviously, The Daily Show, co-created by one of our favorite guests, Madeline Smithberg, and another, Liz.
I love her.
We love both of them. What did you guys have faith in that concept right away? I mean, did you know it would become as culturally important as it has and did?
Well, that show was interesting. That came at the tail end of our reign over there at Comedy Central. But I just want to back to something just before that Art and I were instrumental in doing, which I think gave birth to The Daily Show, which was I don't know if you remember this, but we did something called the State of the Union Undressed, which was insane at the time.
Yes.
We carried President Bush's State of the Union speech with the MST twist. We had comedians making fun of it or commenting on it in real time, including Al Franken, who at the time was on Saturday Night Live. And that really put the network on the map, which eventually led to shows like The Daily Show and South Park feeling comfortable that they could be on a network that would be as bold as that.
That I totally remember that. Not until you just said that, and then that kind of paved the way. As you said, it was toward the end of your reign there. That paved the way for The Daily Show. When you look at it now, and you look at the stable of people that is generated, do you have to get a sense of pride from that?
Yeah, I certainly do. Listen, my dream for the comedy network, for Comedy Central, was that it would be the center of the comedy universe. that would attract great talent, great stand-up comedians, great writers, great innovative comedy. And, you know, I sit here 30 years later, look back on it, and I couldn't be more proud.
If we only got residual checks.
Vinny, let's move to the podcast, the Constant Comedy Podcast. You guys are obviously going to have some guests from your time at Comedy Central. Who are you excited to talk to? Who have you had on so far?
We just had Mitch Semmel on, and Mitch is the executive who with Art that licensed AbFab, your favorite show.
Yeah.
So that was great revisiting that time period with Mitch, and he put on Politically Incorrect. So that was exciting. We spoke to Scott Carter, right? Art, that was a lot of fun.
Producer of Politically Incorrect for years. Yeah.
That was great. We're talking to Nancy Geller this week, and Nancy Geller was a producer. Check this out, Jason, on SCTV on Saturday Night Live. She produced the Chris Rock show, the Bill Maher show. Like she's one of the biggies in the world of comedy, and we're excited to talk to her.
Before we're going to have more time with you on the other side of the break, but last 30 seconds, not to put you on the spot, but what is a fact about Comedy Central? I love a good fun fact. What's a fact about the network that not a lot of people or some folks would be surprised to know?
Well, we had competition. 6 months after we launched, MTV launched a comedy network called the Comedy Network, so which tickled me to death. And 6 months after that, they merged us, which is how we ended up as Comedy Central.
It was only 6 months?
Well, we were on the air for a year.
Yeah.
We launched in 89. 89 is when Comedy Channel launched.
Right, and then we relaunched in 91 as Comedy Central. We had to rename the network. They wouldn't let us call it the Comedy Channel or
And thus, Comedy Central was born. Well, everyone stay right there. You know me. I love late night. I'm a child of late night. So you know if I have Art and Vinny on the show, we're going to do 2 segments. More with the guys when we come back. Back after this.
Now let's talk. The crew got together. We got you a gift.
Stop it.
And this is for you. It's a
I know
phone
what
book.
This is. I know.
And I want to see if it fits.
I know.
So, I don't know.
Hey.
How is that?
I
It's
feel
a
good
eye
up
level.
here.
It includes the Upper West Side, extra support for your lumbar.
Oh,
So
thank
there
you very
go.
much. So this is what life is like up here?
Yeah.
Nice.
What other?
Wow.
What
I feel sexy.
Yes.
Well, we know that chair fit like a glove. It's a great clip from The Daily Show in 1998 when the original host, Craig Kilborn, welcomed his replacement, Jon Stewart. Welcome back. The Daily Show is just one of the shows that put Comedy Central on the map. We're continuing our talk with the creators of the networks and the hosts of a new podcast about the early days of Comedy Central, Art Bell and Vinnie Favale. Art, I wanted to ask you, when I was thinking about what Comedy Central means and meant to the world of comedy, I was thinking that it's kind of like a great evolution of what Carson used to be able to do to a comedian's career. You would appear on Carson, and then the next day, your whole life would change. Did you look at Comedy Central as a television evolution of that power for comedians?
Well, you know what? It's an interesting idea. I don't think I was thinking of it just that way. I did want to, as I said, celebrate comedy. And almost immediately after we launched Comedy Channel, stand-up comedians started hanging around with us. It was the stand-up craze was really getting going, especially in New York City and Los Angeles. And so there were a lot of comedians looking for other outlets besides clubs. And there we were.
Vinny, I got to turn to you. I'm a Letterman guy. Which is funny because I'm having Leno on the show tomorrow. But anyway, I'm a Letterman guy, and everyone knows that here in Minnesota. You were there from 96 to 2015, and looking back, that was back when the late night wars really meant something. You guys were battling for every ratings point. Right. In 96 with Leno, what was the pressure like, Vinny? Dave was 3 years fresh on CBS in 96. What was that pressure like for you?
It was unbearable, truly. It was a very difficult time. I was new to network television because I had just come off of Comedy Central, and I was the executive that had to oversee that show. And it was overwhelming. It took me 3 years to figure out just what I needed to do. It was tough because we were getting ratings every day. Leno, a lot of people might not remember this, but the NBC was emerging with Must See TV. So they, Friends was a monster hit, ER, and at CBS we had Murder She Wrote and Diagnosis Murder. So that was not helping. That was not helping Dave's cause. But day in and day out, Dave did a great show every night, and it baffled me why we weren't doing better. And then over time, things leveled out. But it was very difficult. It wasn't fun, anything but funny.
For you, Vinny, being a student of Letterman as I am, what is your proudest accomplishment? The mark that you are proud to say that you made on Late Show?
Well, I think learning how to support the show even against difficult odds when you're the network. Sometimes what they want to do is against what the network wants. But one of the things that I contributed, I thought was wonderful, was when Dave didn't want to travel anymore, and which was difficult for us as a network because we like when a show goes to a market because it helps the local ratings, as you know. So I had the idea, why don't we fly the audience in? And we did that 15 times, including Minneapolis. We would work with the affiliates, and we would fly 400 people into a taping of The Late Show, and it was wonderful. And I remember when we did Minneapolis, I believe Kirby Puckett was the surprise guest. It was the loudest standing ovation I have ever heard because no one knew he was going to be there, and it was an audience made of locals. So
yeah,
it was awesome.
And Vinny, if I remember correctly, you used the anchors from the local station, like here in Minneapolis. You used our anchor here, Don Shelby, to do cut-ins during Dave.
Exactly. And that's the brilliance of look, the idea was a great one. I'll take credit for that, but that the writers wholly embraced it. So the top 10 that night, even the backdrop, remember, Dave would push a button and the skyline became Minneapolis. So I'm real excited about that I was able to contribute that. And I was on the show. In 1982, I did stand-up on the NBC show. So I was there the very first year just as a comedian.
I'm such a nerd that I remember everything. Anyway, Art, I want to give you the last word here. When you look at the future, everyone thought, when John left The Daily Show, Comedy Central is going to go in the toilet. And they said, where do you see the future for Comedy Central, for the network you created?
Well, you know what? Comedy Central is one of the great brands, one of the great comedy brands in the United States, and maybe in the world. I mean, you got Saturday Night Live, National Lampoon, and, Comedy Central, whatever they do, whatever television programming they make, or movies or records or whatever the heck they're making, they are going to be the mark of great, edgy comedy. And I think that is, that's very important. Whatever happens on the television network, they still have a great brand.
Well, as a late night nerd, I can't tell you what it means to me to talk to you gentlemen, and thank you for your contribution to popular culture. You guys are some of the best, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Their podcast is called The Constant Comedy Podcast. The first 2 episodes are available now. More episodes are coming soon. You can find it wherever you stream your podcasts.